What's up, everybody? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. Could a big move still be coming for our Minnesota Vikings? Let's talk about it. So the Vikings right now still have $26.1 million in cap space following the Justin Jefferson extension. So will GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah cook something up? We'll talk about it on today's show. But if you guys want the Vikes to make one more big signing during this NFL offseason, you guys can help me out. Just drop a like on today's video. Maybe send a little bit of a message to the Vikings front office that we want one more big-time signing, maybe a big-time extension coming soon. So make sure you guys do hit that thumbs up icon. But speaking about a big-time extension, Christian Darrisaw, he is definitely next up on the list of Vikings, to-dos. And, they don't have to extend him this summer, but I think a extension is more likely to come next summer, but they could still get it done this year. Darrisaw has been fantastic since joining Minnesota, coming out of Virginia Tech. I do think he is one of the best left tackles in the league, and PFF agrees. His overall grade of an 82.4 this past season, and this was actually a down year for Darrisaw if you compare it to his first two seasons. But, did allow 6 sacks, did allow 31 pressures, but still overall was great. Pass block grade of 85.3. Darrisaw, I have more than enough confidence that he could be a starter for this team for the next 10 seasons. But how much will he get paid? That's the biggest question here. And, I don't know if Darrisaw is the guy where he is going to want to reset the market, but I guarantee you he's going to want at least $20+ million per season. So I could see the Vikings, maybe extending him for a 4 for $80. I would absolutely love that deal. Give him about 60 of that in fully guaranteed money. So if there was one big move for the Vikings that I could see coming, right away, maybe this summer, it could definitely be Christian Darrisaw, but also Cam Bynum. Cam Bynum could be next up on our list as an extension that could happen for our Vikes, as he absolutely popped off last season. Coming out of college, he was supposed to be a cornerback, but then we saw the transition to him to safety, and I think that was a great move for him because it just showed off his versatility. And, with Brian Flores, what's the one buzzword we love to say so much here on the channel that he loves is versatile players. And Cam Bynum, he's the definition of that. 137 tackles last year from the safety position is just absolutely incredible. But some more stats, he was great, man, and he just fills up the stat sheet all over the field. 9 PBUs, 9 forced fumbles. He was great, man. And, I think the thing is with Cam Bynum that I love so much is that, you can play him in the box. You can play him as a free, as a strong safety, whatever it may be. Or you can even stick him back at cornerback since he already has experience doing that throughout his playing career in college and in the NFL. So I think Cam Bynum is another deal that could get done. I don't think he's a guy that's going to, reset the safety market. I could see Cam Bynum getting a deal done where maybe it's 4 for 60, and maybe it's, not a team-friendly deal, but it's kind of one of those deals that, shows he wants to stay in Minnesota, and maybe the Vikings give him a ton of, extra years and, show him some, certainty there. But I do expect both these deals to get done, and they both need to get done because these are some cornerstone pieces on this roster. But coming up here, I'm going to be going over 10 free agent targets for the Minnesota Vikings at each of these top positions of need. I think still number 1 is the cornerback, number 2, defensive line. Put wide receiver 3 on there. I don't know if it's that big of a need, but it's definitely 3rd on my list. Then also running back behind Aaron Jones. But the number 1 free agent target I have is Xavien Howard. I'm not going to speak to the legal issues he has going on right now. We're just going to talk about him as a player. But he is still 31 years old, still one of the better cornerbacks in the National Football League, and he would be a huge addition to this room because, not only I think he could compete with Byron Murphy for CB1, but I think the mentorship he would have in the locker room for young guys like Evans, young guys like Mekhi Blackman, even, a Adoree Jackson or a Dwight McGlothern, who's been apparently, absolutely balling out at minicamp this past week. And I think Xavien Howard would be a great addition, man. And, is he the same player that had 10+ interceptions 3-4 years ago? No, he is not that guy. But could he be a guy that could step in, add some great rotational, some rotational reps at that cornerback spot? 100%. Also, he already has familiarity with Brian Flores and what he likes to do. But another free agent target, Calais Campbell, is, I kind of was debating this in my own head. What is more impressive, Calais Campbell playing defensive line in the NFL at age 38, or what LeBron James has done in the NBA? They have both dominated Father Time, and the fact that he is 38 years old and still being productive is absolutely incredible. But, there's still a need at the interior of the defensive line for the Minnesota Vikings. I think you're set at the edge department with Dallas Turner, with Jonathan Grenard, with Andrew Van Ginkel. You're good there. but there would still be a need for a guy next to Harrison Phillips. I love what Jerry Tillery has done so far at OTAs, at minicamp, but Calais Campbell would definitely be an upgrade. And, during his age 37 season, the fact this guy had 7 sacks is absolutely incredible. Played 17 games as well, 17 quarterback hits. Like, Calais Campbell is seriously one of the more impressive athletes in all of sports since he has beat Father Time over and over again. And if I personally had to choose one, I would choose Calais Campbell to add to this group. Just add an overall, sense of toughness to this Vikings team, which I don't necessarily think they have had over the past couple of years. But another cornerback here, Stephon Gilmore, another guy who is absolutely dominating Father Time as, still at the age of 32 this past season. He was great for the Dallas Cowboys. And the thing with Stephon Gilmore that I love a lot, very similar to Xavien Howard, but overall the, mentorship and the leadership you would add to this young group. This was a guy who did win a Defensive Player of the Year for the New England Patriots. This is a guy who is one of the top cornerbacks in the National Football League. And if it's not Calais Campbell, I would choose Stephon Gilmore. Obviously Xavien Howard, he's got the off-the-field stuff going on right now, but I still wanted to touch on him. But, Calais Campbell, Xavien Howard, if we got those notifications that the Vikings gave him a, maybe a 1-year, $10 million deal, and it would be, a little bit of an overpay, I would still absolutely love it. But 2 more cornerbacks here. Steve Nelson coming up next, and also we'll get to Adoree Jackson here in a second. But Steven Nelson, he was great for the Houston Texans yet again. Steven Nelson's one of those guys. I just love the swagger he plays with. He's a big jawer out there on the football field, and, I think that matters at that cornerback position. You got to have, overwhelming confidence because, most of the time, like if you get beat over the top, everybody knows. But if you're a cornerback and you're doing your job and you're the best player out there on the field, it's tough for the common fan to realize that. But, Steven Nelson this past season, great at the age of 30, 12 PBUs, 4 interceptions, already has familiarity with, Jonathan Grenard, Blake Cashman, so we could just add another Houston Texan, defender to this unit. I would be absolutely thrilled. But in terms of a scheme fit I love the most, this has to be Adoree Jackson. And, Bill Barnwell of ESPN did connect the Minnesota Vikings to Adoree, calling the Vikings his best fit for his free agency. And, I kind of agree. Like, Adoree Jackson, he loves being impressed man. No safety help over the top. Like, he wants that pressure on him. And you know what? That's what Brian Flores does better than anybody. He brings pressure on the quarterback. He asks a lot of his corners. And also, Adoree Jackson, great in the run game. Like, that is one thing, even though, his production this past season has fallen off. And obviously, injuries being a huge reason, why he hasn't been able to reach his max potential. But he's been always great in the run game. And I think that's going to continue, even though if he's, been lacking in coverage over the past couple of seasons. But first, we'll get to 5 more names here in a second. But I do just want to say thank you guys so much. We just hit 26,000 subscribers here on the channel. It's been awesome. So really just credit to you guys. So thank you so much for everybody who's, came across this channel here at Chat Sports and said, hey, I'm going to hit that subscribe button. So I really appreciate it. But also, if you haven't already, help us reach 27K and hit that sub button today. Now let's kick it to the edge department. Even though I don't think this is a huge need for the Vikings, this could just be another good rotational piece. And it's Carl Lawson, who is 29 years of age. And, injuries, big issue with him over the past, couple of years. Did play all 17 games in 2022. But, the thing about Carl Lawson that I like the most is, he plays with a ton of aggression. And it does get him, into trouble sometimes. But, the thing is with Carl is, like, he could just be a guy that it just comes in on 3rd downs. He just comes in on those big-time pass downs. And, I always go back to a game plan that Mike Zimmer had. It was in the wild card round versus New Orleans Saints where he kicked in Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter into the interior of the defensive line because the Vikings did have options still behind those two to keep them at the edges, and they wanted to really attack those guards and centers. I could see Brian Flores having a very similar, game plan if they do add in another edge rusher. Because you could kick in Dallas Turner and Jonathan Grenard, and then on the outside, you already have Andrew Van Ginkel still on the team. Then you could, use a guy like, you could use him, to be that next rotational guy. So I think, even though edge is not a huge need for the Minnesota Vikings, it could still be a great piece to just add in and just add, more, and just more, players to this, edge group that, even though they are a little top heavy, I wouldn't mind, adding another guy to that list. But coming up for me next is Michael Thomas, a wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. And, listen, the funny thing about Michael Thomas is, he's not the same guy that he once was, obviously. But, Michael Thomas could still be extremely productive. And if you would ask him in a condensed role to play wide receiver 3 for the Minnesota Vikings, he would excel at it because he wouldn't get, the first looks. He wouldn't get the second looks. He would get those wide receiver 3 looks. And if you're asking, the other team's cornerback 3 to match up with Michael Thomas, good luck with that. But another edge on our group, and the reason I included Emmanuel Ogbah on this list is just his familiarity with Brian Flores. And his best years did come when he was with Flo back in that 2021 season. These are his PFF grades over the past couple of years, but 77 overall grade in 2021, run defense at 60.8, pass rush at 71.4. He's been pretty solid. Again, same argument that I would use for Carl Lawson, just giving the Vikings another rotational guy in the mix. But former Minnesota Viking from this past season, who we acquired midway through the year, Cam Akers. And, in terms of my number one running back that I would bring back in for the Vikes, if they were going to bring in another back this offseason, Cam Akers is at the top of my list over a guy, like a Dalvin Cook, who, we actually talked about on yesterday's show. So check that out if you guys didn't have it, or if you guys haven't already. But, Akers, the numbers aren't going to blow you away in 6 games with the Vikings this past season. 38 carries, 138 yards, only averaged 3.6 yards per clip. But in terms of my eye test with Cam Akers, he was the best running back on the Vikings this past season. Like, no doubt about it. Like, he was the one that performed, the best. And, I like what Ty Chandler does. You guys know that. But, Cam Akers just, due to my eyes, I thought he was the best running back on this group. But the last free agent target, let's talk about him, Hunter Renfrow. We talked about it a couple times here on the channel as he would just be that slot guy, still 28 years old. And he was great back in the 2021 season where he had over 100 catches, had over 1,000 yards, 10.1 yards per catch. There's a reason in Las Vegas they called him third in Renfrow. And again, he would be a similar player to a Brandon Powell. So I would rather have them stick at the Brandon Powell route. But, hey, obviously if Renfrow, would come on a cheap deal, I would definitely be interested in signing him. But I just gave you guys 10 names. You guys give me one. Name a free agent you guys want the Vikings to sign. Curious to see what you guys have to say. And I do expect a move to be coming for the Vikings here shortly. So if it does, we'll have a video for you guys ASAP. Hit that subscribe button, lock us in. And as always, Skol Vikes.